Orhan stood in the dimly lit garage, his dark brown eyes fixed on the sleek, midnight blue Vauxhall Lotus Carlton that gleamed under the flickering fluorescent lights. At 25 years old, the Caucasian man with his athletic build and tousled dark hair felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. He ran his fingers along the smooth, cool metal of the car's hood, feeling the power that lay dormant beneath. The trophy collector car was his father's pride and joy, a testament to years of hard work and dedication. As Orhan circled the vehicle, his mind wandered to his father's stern words before departing on his 2-month business trip. "Keep an eye on Orhan," he had instructed his older brother, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern gaze. "Make sure he doesn't even think about taking the Carlton for a spin." The memory of those words echoed in Orhan's ears, mingling with the tempting purr of the engine in his imagination. The house above was quiet, with his mother and 2 elder sisters likely asleep in their rooms. Orhan's older brother, tasked with keeping watch, had retired early, leaving the keys to the prized car on the kitchen counter. The young man's heart raced as he contemplated the risk, his fingers twitching with the desire to grasp those keys and unleash the beast that lay waiting in the garage. With a deep breath, Orhan made his decision. He crept up the stairs, his footsteps barely audible on the carpeted steps. The kitchen was bathed in moonlight streaming through the large bay window, casting an ethereal glow on the counter where the keys lay. With trembling hands, he reached out and grasped the cool metal, feeling the weight of his decision as he clutched them tightly. Back in the garage, Orhan slid into the driver's seat, the supple leather embracing him like an old friend. The car seemed to come alive around him, responding to his touch as he inserted the key into the ignition. With a turn of his wrist, the engine roared to life, filling the small space with its thunderous growl. Orhan's heart pounded in sync with the rumbling beneath him, as the garage door opened, revealing the quiet suburban street beyond. Orhan felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. He eased the car out onto the asphalt, the powerful machine purring softly as if eager to show its true potential. The streets were deserted at this late hour, offering a perfect canvas for Orhan to paint with tire tracks and burning rubber. The first few nights were a blur of adrenaline and speed. Orhan found himself drawn to the outskirts of town, where long stretches of empty road beckoned. He pushed the Carlton to its limits, feeling the rush of wind through the cracked windows and the surge of power as he accelerated. Each time he returned home, carefully replacing the keys and wiping down the car, he felt a sense of accomplishment mingled with guilt. It wasn't long before word spread through the local street racing community about the mysterious driver in the Blue Lotus Carlton. Challenges began to pour in, and Orhan found himself unable to resist. Night after night, he snuck out, meeting other racers on deserted industrial parks and quiet country roads. The thrill of competition fueled his passion, and soon he was known as the one to beat. As Orhan's reputation grew, so did his confidence. He began to take bigger risks, pushing the car harder and faster with each race. The guilt that had initially plagued him began to fade, replaced by a sense of pride in his skills behind the wheel. He convinced himself that what his father and brother didn't know wouldn't hurt them. One particularly moonlit night, Orhan found himself lined up against a fierce competitor. The other driver, a wiry man with a shaved head and multiple piercings, revved his heavily modified sports car aggressively. The air was thick with tension and the scent of burning rubber. As the flag dropped, both cars launched forward, tires screaming against the asphalt. The race was neck and neck, with Orhan and his opponent trading the lead multiple times. The Carlton's engine roared as Orhan pushed it to its limits, feeling the car respond to his every command. As they approached the final stretch, Orhan made a daring move, cutting inside on a tight turn and surging ahead. The finish line loomed ahead, and with a final burst of speed, Orhan crossed it first. The crowd erupted in cheers as Orhan emerged from the car, his face flushed with excitement and triumph. As he basked in the glory of his win, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Orhan. The young man froze, his blood turning to ice as he turned to see his older brother pushing through the crowd, his face a mask of anger and disappointment. The drive home was tense, with Orhan's brother gripping the steering wheel of the Carlton so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he growled, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Dad trusted us, trusted you, and this is how you repay him." Orhan sat in silence, the weight of his actions finally crashing down upon him. As they pulled into the garage, Orhan's brother killed the engine and turned to face him. "I should tell Dad everything," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "But I won't. Not yet. You're going to fix this, Orhan. You're going to make this right." With that, he stormed out of the garage, leaving Orhan alone with his thoughts and the now silent car. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Orhan. He felt torn between the thrill of racing and the guilt of betraying his family's trust. He found himself standing in the garage for hours, staring at the Carlton and wrestling with his conscience. The keys, now hidden away by his brother, seemed to call to him from their secret location. As the end of his father's business trip approached, Orhan knew he had to make a decision. He couldn't continue living this double life, sneaking out at night and pretending everything was normal during the day. The strain was beginning to show, and he feared it was only a matter of time before his mother and sisters noticed something was amiss. After much soul-searching, Orhan approached his brother one evening. "I want to come clean," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to tell Dad everything when he gets back." His brother studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "It's the right thing to do," he agreed, placing a supportive hand on Orhan's shoulder. The day of their father's return arrived, and Orhan felt a mix of dread and relief. As the family gathered to welcome him home, Orhan's palms were sweaty, and his heart raced. When the initial greetings were over, he took a deep breath and asked to speak with his father privately. The older man, sensing the seriousness in his son's tone, agreed. In the study, surrounded by books and family photos, Orhan poured out the whole story. He spoke of the temptation, the thrill of racing, and the guilt that had been eating away at him. His father listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When Orhan finished, he braced himself for the anger he was sure would follow. To Orhan's surprise, his father's response was measured. "I'm disappointed," he began, "but I'm proud that you've chosen to be honest with me." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "You've shown great skill behind the wheel, Orhan. Perhaps it's time we explored that talent in a more legal setting." A small smile played at the corners of his mouth as he spoke. In the months that followed, Orhan found himself on a new path. With his father's support, he began training for professional racing, channeling his passion into a legitimate career. The Lotus Carlton remained in the garage, a reminder of the risks he had taken and the lessons he had learned. As Orhan stood on the podium after his first official race win, he realized that facing his fears and standing up for his dreams had led him to a future brighter than he could have imagined.